Hello, I'm SquirrelMaid13. Being a fan of YouTube, I am quite aware that hundreds of other videos upon the same topic are already in existence, many of them better presented and better researched than my own. Given this, I quite expect that this contribution of mine will be lost among the myriad of others with only a few views, and probably never be heard from again. And that's perfectly okay. It is for the emotional satisfaction of throwing in my 2 cents on this already well-covered subject that I am making this video. Okay, now to my points. Harry Potter versus Twilight. A very popular subject for debate at the moment, one that is manifested in various ways. On Facebook flare boards, on internet polls, in the successful franchise-based store Hot Topic, where a large stand in the center of the store is covered on one side with Gryffindor shirts, with Slytherin necklaces, with Bellatrix Lestrange and Ron Weasley backpacks, and on the other side with various lunchboxes, t-shirts, keychains, and bottles of glitter, all plastered with Robert Pattinson's face. I will be coming into this debate strongly upon the side of Harry Potter. I'll be reading from a script, in which I have compiled a list of various points which I shall now lay before you. First of all, Harry Potter has layer upon layer of substance. Although it is set in a fantasy world, it has something to say about almost every real-world issue, leaving the reader with plenty of food for thought. Everything is covered, from corrupt governments and racial discrimination to the most subtle of human emotions and motives. The fact that it is set in a fantasy world does not mean it has no application to everyday life. Yes, the government in the Harry Potter series is the fictional Ministry of Magic. However, its progression as the series goes on from an ordinary, flawed government to a brainwashing totalitarian state similar to Nazi Germany is startlingly realistic and frightening. We see racism and discrimination up close. Just because the people being discriminated against by the government are Muggle-borns, wizards who are born of non-magical parents, and not, African Americans or people with special needs, doesn't make it any less applicable to these real-world problems. Seeing the good characters fight these things is inspiring, even if it is in the context of fantasy. On the other hand, Twilight deals with almost no real-world issues. It is obsessively focused on the unhealthy romance of a human, Bella Swan, and a vampire, Edward Cullen. Bella, the narrator, has no individual character and is completely dependent on her hot, sparkly, dead boyfriend. Yes, the vampires in Twilight sparkle. Edward, the focus of Bella and therefore of the reader, is portrayed as perfect, although in the real world he would be nothing more or less than an abusive boyfriend. He is possessive, manipulative, jealous, immature to the last degree, and keeps Bella, wherever possible, from making any of her own decisions. And she just lets him do it, commenting for the 1,000,001st time on his sparkly perfection. Edward is really a very selfish person. It is interesting to note that, although he does risk his life to save someone else multiple times, it is invariably for one person, Bella, his romantic interest. Even worse, he always has to save her from situations which she got into through her own stupidity. Clumsy, careless, human Bella walks into an evil vampire's trap, into a gang of thugs, in front of a skidding truck. An inhuman, amazing Edward rescues her in the nick of time, always leaving her and the reader with a reinforced sense of his perfection and her inferiority. Apart from her, he really couldn't care less what happens to anyone else, or who suffers from his choices. Take into consideration the part when James, the tracker vampire, first sets himself upon Bella's trail. Edward throws Bella into the backseat of his car, tells his brother Emmett to hold her down, and proceeds to forcibly drive her away from the town, ignoring her screams and pleas that they go back and try to help her father, whom James will probably target next. In fact, Edward drives her away more and more resolutely as she gets more and more hysterical, and it is only when his sister, Alice, talks some sense into him that he agrees to turn around. If I were Bella, and any guy treated my wishes and my family with this much contempt, he wouldn't be my boyfriend much longer. However, Bella spends the rest of the book, during which she is separated from Edward, reflecting on how amazing he is and how pointless her life is without him. Harry, on the other hand, risks his life for others multiple times as well, and it is significant to note that out of all the instances where he puts himself in danger for someone else, it is never once for a romantic interest. Whether it is someone he loves deeply in a non-romantic way, such as his godfather, Sirius, or his friend Ron, someone he merely respects and is unwilling to see hurt, for example, Professor McGonagall, a teacher at Hogwarts, someone he doesn't even like, such as his gluttonous, bullying cousin Dudley, or Draco Malfoy, a fellow student with whom Harry has a long-standing rivalry. Harry puts himself in immediate danger to save every one of them at one time or another. Harry risks his life to save people he doesn't even know, such as Gabrielle Delacour in Goblet of Fire. He risks his life to save people, and their being put out of commission would be to his own interests, such as when he helps Cedric Diggory multiple times during the third task of the Triwizard Tournament, in which they are both competing. The climax of the series is when Harry lays down his wand and gives himself up to torture and death at the hands of the villain Lord Voldemort, knowing that the alternative is watching his loved ones die. Now this might not really count since it's personal opinion, but I simply found the whole world J.K. Rowling created to be more believable and enjoyable than Myers. In Harry Potter, even the first 2 books, which are really little more than children's books if you take the time to analyze the plot, are so delightful and original in their writing and conception that I, at least, have no problem reading them over and over again. Myers' plots can grab you on a first reading, but they seem unspeakably boring a second time. And why? Because it's almost all about the romance, with feeble spurts of action thrown in here and there. When reading Harry Potter, you discover something new every single time. And that's another thing, character and plot development. People who start out in the first book as little more than stereotypes, Draco Malfoy, the mean kid, Snape, the mean teacher, Dumbledore, the funny little old man, have all become 3-dimensional characters with tons of history behind them. In Twilight, the main characters, the supporting characters, everyone are completely flat. Here I do have to make an exception for Carlisle Cullen, since he is actually an interesting, likable character with history behind him. However, he is the exception rather than the rule. I can't think of anyone in Harry Potter who hasn't grown and developed beyond all recognition after 7 books, and that's good. You feel like you've grown with them and watched them change. In Twilight, the whole series is focused on this one relationship, which at the end of the books comes to a happily ever after ending, leaving the characters not much different than they were at the beginning. And I mean, how can you not love Quidditch? This completely fantastical sport with 14 players on broomsticks, 4 balls, and 6 school hoops sounds pretty far-fetched. Of course, technologically it is. We can't fly around on sticks. However, Rowling makes it seem so normal that I feel like I could actually play any of the 4 positions in Quidditch if someone handed me a broomstick. She makes you feel like it could all be real, like it is real. Not once when I was reading Twilight did I wish or imagine that there really might be vampires living in a little town in Washington.